Wang Zhaoming told me, I made an oral interview, history interview with Wang Zhaoming. Wang Zhaoming told me, he said, in spring of 1953, and we, the group of young officials at industry committee, we received an assignment from top leader. Which one? He said, the top leader, which means Chiang Kai-shek, requesting us to re-explain 解开那个结 untie the knot, to re-explain Dr. Sun's people's livelihood, restricting private enterprises, trying to re-explain it. So after days of discussion, and this group of young fellows from industry committee, they proposed a memo to the so-called top leader. And Wang Zhaoming told me 2 weeks later, and they observed Chiang Kai-shek in public endorse privatization and using the revised interpretation of Dr. Sun's people's livelihood. Because in Wang Zhaoming's memo, they proposed that Dr. Sun had never been against the private enterprises. Instead, he meant 节制私人资本, restricting private capital. Here, 节制, he meant adjustment and management, 调节管制. 节制 did not mean restriction, but adjustment and management. So Wang Zhaoming, they saw Chiang Kai-shek in public using the term, saying that, oh, Dr. Sun was never against private capital. And what he meant restricting private capital, he meant the government should provide a proper adjustment and management, and so as for the government to assist enterprises to develop. And in early 1954, it was the peak of the debate. Chen Chen, premier, and Hu Shi, who was one of the most renowned scholar in Chinese community, Hu Shi, they both endorsed privatization. Chen Chen, on March 1st, 1954, in a very important meeting held at the presidential office, Chen Chen announced that all those businesses that are capable of being run by citizens shall be opened up to private enterprises ownership. And 3 days later, in another talk, Chen Chen reaffirmed, saying that we will not only revise any of our laws and regulations that limit private enterprise freedom, but by careful planning, the state will open up the economy to enable more private enterprises to start operations. So Chen Chen's announcement served as a shockwave among Kuomintang leaders. But 2 days later, almost at the same time, Hu Shi held a press conference in which Hu Shi said the National Resources Commission, which was this commission was in charge of national resources in the 30s, 40s. Hu Shi said the National Resources Commission had once controlled most of the national resources, but its economic performance had turned out to be a disaster. The commission had swallowed, suffocated private enterprises, and as a result, China's economy had never embarked on a path of renewed growth. So Hu Shi, in that press conference, he urged the state and all citizens to re-examine their thinking of economy. Which economic system could best serve for Taiwan's future development? But with endowment of Chen Chen and Hu Shi, the debate had ended. But with the conclusion of the debate, a new consensus emerged among Taiwanese political economic leaders and elites and ordinary citizens. People now began to adopt the thinking that state enterprises shall be and could be privatized, and the state and party should promote the building of private enterprise market economy. And government should provide protection of private property rights. Yin soon became Minister of Economic Affairs, using the command economy as he always been doing to privatize state-owned enterprises. And Yin Zhongrong also took advantage of American aid to expand its foreign trade with Japanese markets and other Pacific Asian markets. And during the year, lots of medium and small-scale private enterprises had embarked on a wide-ranging manufacturing program: soap, matches, light bulb, flour, rubber products, plastic, etc., etc. So we can observe that between 1953 and 1956, strong economic expansion by more private enterprises. Per capita GNP had grown by about 9% per year. Corresponding figures for agriculture and industry were 4.9% and 11.6%. Faster growth of private enterprises. But privatization was successful, but never easy. Yin Zhongrong, at the peak of his political power, in 1953, he was Minister of Economic Affairs, Director of Industry Committee, also Chairman of Central Trust of China. In Zhongrong, he had authority to make key economic decisions. He had authority to allocate American aid assets. And he enjoyed the trust of Chen Chen, who later became Vice President, as well as the trust of Chiang Kai-shek. Yin Zhongrong also enjoyed respect from many of the government officials. And Yin Zhongrong, his fame was widespread throughout Taiwan. But he had also won over many opponents. On March 15, 1955, Yin's enemies openly launched their attack. On that day, legislator Guo Zijun, 立法委员郭子俊 legislator Guo Zijun, accused Yin Zhongrong at the Legislative Yuan session, saying that the CTC China Trust, Central Trust of China, CTC had loaned 7 million Taibi NT dollars to Yangtze Timber Company. And they found out that Yin Zhongrong and the CTC was trying to collaborate with Yangtze Timber Company to obtain illegal benefit. But this kind of charge, this kind of accusation in the legislative and in Congress was just commonplace. Every day, the premier and the minister will receive a lot of charges and accusations. Usually, premier would say, "Oh, thank you for your information, and I will certainly go back and I will investigate, and in a certain day, then I will provide you an answer to this information." But surprisingly, Premier Yu Hongjun, Premier's reaction to this charge was very strange, very weird. Instead of sending this for internal investigation, and Premier Yuan, on that very afternoon, he designated legislator Guo Zijun's accusation to prosecution of Supreme Court of Taiwan, and for a formal investigation. So Yin Zhongrong now understood that his top leader, his boss, didn't agree with him, but actually Premier Yu was a member of the conservatives who were pro-state enterprises. Premier Yu was unhappy with Yin Zhongrong for a long time. Yin Zhongrong was open-minded, straightforward, and he liked to use English terms when he proposed an economic idea. So people saw in some occasions when Premier Yu was explaining an economic policy, and Yu was cautious and slow, and Yin Zhongrong would stood up and say, "Please stop and let me talk." But Premier Yu was a gentleman who was very, very polite and kind, who didn't express his resentment in public, but together with all the people who had been disagreeing with privatization policy, now jointly they launched their attack. So Yin Zhongrong was persecuted, and Yin Zhongrong resigned from all his government positions, and Yin Zhongrong stayed unemployed for the next 2 years. And Yu Hongjun appointed Jiang Biao to replace Yin Zhongrong as Minister of Economic Affairs. Jiang Biao, what kind of person is Jiang Biao? Jiang Biao is also a member of the conservatives, also a member of supporters of state enterprises. So Jiang Biao resumed the office of Economic Affairs and asked Jiang Jieshi to intervene. And Jiang Jieshi had to make a personal phone call to Minister Jiang Biao refer this petition. And it was only at this moment Jiang Biao pulled out the application and signed his name. So this is just one of the many cases that privatization policy slowed down when Jiang Biao was in the Office of Economic Affairs. But with Yin Zhongrong's absence from the government, Taiwan's domestic market soon became saturated because Taiwan market is very small. With the fast-growing import substitution industries, the market soon became full. So Taiwan economy met the bottleneck of further development. Not only this, the government had been suffering from trade deficit ever since 1949, and the problem has never been worked out. And high unemployment and heavy dependence on government protection, American aid, and corruptions. And you know, command always bring up corruptions. Corruptions always comes after government control. And worse then is the multi-foreign exchange rate. In 1956, guess how many exchange rates? 9 different foreign exchange rates in 1956. How come? Because of tightly command of foreign exchange. So the government would give the rate depend on different situations. For example, state enterprises, they enjoy a better rate. Private enterprises, a worse rate. People who want to import luxury goods like stockings, lipsticks, cosmetics, or the government will surely give a very tough rate. So from 1949 to 1956, there were 9 different foreign exchange rates. Nobody knew which one was the real one. So nobody knew the real value of Taiwan currency was. So the second economic debate was about to erupt. And the government, knowing the difficulty, facing the challenges, but the government couldn't decide what to do. Yin Zhongrong in 1957 returned to the government after being sentenced to innocent. And Yin Zhongrong, the first thing when he returned to the government to do was to invite debate on which way Taiwan should go. Yin Zhongrong saying that Taiwan is shallow dish economy. The market easily to be satirized. So Taiwan had no choice but to open up its economy, its market to export. But to do export, the government first has to reform its foreign exchange rate. So there was a debate between conservatives and reformers. The conservatives preferred a second phase of import substitution,